Tom Bauer has now shared what he says was the reason behind Meghan Markle's reportedly awkward 47-minute Highgrove visit. According to his account, that detail may help explain why the meeting ended so badly. What Meghan may have expected to be a warm family reunion instead came across as a tense, tightly managed encounter. Bauer has also issued what he describes as an urgent warning to King Charles, and I'm going to break that down in this video.
Meghan Markle felt humiliated on Prince Harry's most recent UK trip, and that the trip turned into a nightmare, forcing Markle and her children to return home to California earlier than they had hoped.
Tom Bauer is not only known as a royal biographer, he has also become one of the most closely watched commentators on the issues surrounding Harry and Meghan and their strained relationship with the royal family. According to Bauer's view, Harry and Meghan came back to the United Kingdom with one major aim: to undo the impact of Megxit and try to rebuild their ties with the royal family.
But I do think that when you're mocked so publicly as they've been, their value begins to nosedive pretty quickly. And I don't think they're finding any more sources of income. And with the stream of money they're spending on security, on mortgages, on just plain living, I think they can see the end of the road within 5 years at best. And they've got a real financial problem now.
After years away from royal duties, their situation had reportedly shifted in a major way. Their business ventures were said to be under pressure, Meghan's lifestyle brand was facing its own challenges, and Harry's charitable connections were also reportedly having a rough stretch. Because of that, some commentators argued they needed a path to restore relevance, credibility, and public attention. In that view, the royal family was the only institution that could give them back the status they once had. That is why Bauer's comments have drawn so much attention, because they tap into a bigger question that has followed Harry and Meghan for years. Were these visits about reconciliation or about strategy? Some online critics have argued that every appearance gets read through that lens now, with even a short meeting turning into a major talking point. And in this case, the reported tension around Highgrove only added more weight to the discussion. From there, the conversation naturally shifts to what King Charles may have been dealing with behind the scenes, since any awkward encounter involving the family tends to spark fresh debate about trust, timing, and control. Supporters and critics alike have been reading into the same events very differently, which is exactly why Bauer's warning is getting so much traction online. The claims and reactions are still being argued over, but the public interest around this moment has clearly not faded.
Meghan and Harry's crisis, completely of their own making, is they have no major projects, no major money earners. And so they're more desperate than ever. And I think that they don't know what to do other than to try and come back to Britain and rebuild themselves as some sort of members of the royal family.
But if they were going to get anywhere near the royal family again, they would need a solid, believable reason. And that opening seemed to come through the Invictus Games. Since Harry remains closely tied to the event, some observers felt it gave him a natural way to return to the United Kingdom without it appearing as though he was openly trying to step back into royal life.
I think that's what the Invictus Games, which is this very splendid competition for wounded servicemen, is going to start in Birmingham next year, but there's a rehearsal later in the summer. And Harry is determined to come, and if he could, he'd bring Meghan and somehow work his way back in so that they have status. My feeling is that the king might be slightly sympathetic.
King Charles, as a father who still seemed to care deeply about his son, reportedly allowed the meeting to go ahead and even offered Harry a place to stay at Buckingham Palace. But Harry did not take up that offer right away, and according to reports, the arrangement was later withdrawn. That small detail has only added more speculation around how tense and carefully managed the whole situation may have been.
Prince Harry, the invitation for Prince Harry to stay at Buckingham Palace has been withdrawn. He's coming to Britain today.
After much speculation, a Duke of Sussex spokesperson confirmed the offer, as Andrew says, has been withdrawn at the last moment.
While all of this was unfolding, Tom Bauer claimed that King Charles started to notice a clear pattern. In Bauer's telling, the king studied the situation and came to believe that Harry and Meghan were trying to quietly reverse Megxit and work their way back into the royal orbit, mainly because the royal link still carried credibility, status, and commercial value. That is the core of Bauer's warning, and it is also why some commentators say Charles may need to be extremely careful about every next step. And that is exactly why the reaction keeps getting bigger online. Because once people start viewing every move through that lens, even a simple visit stops looking simple. What might have seemed like a routine family moment quickly turns into a debate over motive, access, and who was really controlling the situation behind the scenes. For critics, that is the part that stands out most, while supporters argue the reading is too harsh and that the claims remain unverified. Either way, the discussion has shifted far beyond one awkward encounter, and now every small detail is being treated like it could say something larger about the relationship between the Sussexes and the royal household. That kind of attention is exactly what keeps Bauer's warning in circulation.
I think the king right now, his best bet would be to distance himself completely, make it clear to Harry that the Sussexes are not welcome at all in Britain.
Harry seems to overlook one key thing. His father is the king, and nothing really escapes his notice. Charles, according to this line of commentary, would likely be fully aware that several of Harry and Meghan's ventures have not unfolded the way they hoped. Their Hollywood projects have faced setbacks. Meghan's lifestyle brand has reportedly run into challenges, and Harry's ties with certain charitable groups have also become more complicated.
When Chandauka denounces Harry as a racist and a bully, and that was, obviously for Harry, absolute disaster. He left the charity soon after, and the charity still survives, but obviously his reputation was severely dented.
However, since the Highgrove meeting had already been set in motion, there was no easy way for King Charles to cancel it without sparking even more talk. So according to Bauer, the king is said to have chosen a different approach. He allowed the meeting to go ahead, but only under strict conditions. King Charles reportedly decided he was not going to make the same mistake of appearing too open or too welcoming without clear boundaries. The earlier sense of openness that surrounded Harry's announcement about returning to the United Kingdom was, at least in this telling, no longer there. According to Bauer, the Highgrove meeting took on a very different tone, one that was tightly controlled, private, brief, and carefully managed.
So I think gradually the king has become much, more respected than he might have been. Mm-hmm. And he is in fact highly respected now, as is the Queen. And they had to fight hard to get to that. So I think the sympathy at the moment is all in their favor. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to let all their hard work. And you've got to remember, and they're not going to cause an argument with William and Kate, mm-hmm. who have absolutely no intention of in any way allowing the rehabilitation of the Sussexes here. So I think it's the royal family versus the Sussexes. And today, the royal family won.
Meghan appears to have expected a warmer welcome after several years away from the United Kingdom, but the reaction she received did not seem to match that hope. According to the commentary around the meeting, it felt less like a genuine family reunion and more like a formal exchange between people who had clearly grown distant. Of course, that is where the speculation really starts to take off, because people online are reading the entire moment as a sign of how far the distance may have grown. A brief visit, in this telling, becomes less about pleasantries and more about what may have been left unsaid, who may have set the terms, and how much control the palace may have wanted to keep. That is why the conversation has not faded, even after the meeting itself passed. Supporters say the reaction is being overstated, but critics keep pointing to the same idea, that the atmosphere seemed unusually guarded, and that alone has kept the discussion alive. As more viewers weigh in, the story is no longer just about a family visit. It is becoming part of the larger debate around trust, timing, and royal boundaries.
Of course, they went on this trip to the UK. There was a bit of will they, won't they? Harry goes by himself, and then suddenly Meghan Markle with the kids in they trot as well. But there have been some reports that the family reunion that they had with the King and the Queen may have not gone as planned for Meghan. There are some suggestions that it probably wasn't warm and fuzzy. I can't imagine why.
According to Bauer, the message to Meghan was unmistakable, even if it was not said out loud. He suggested that, while she and Harry may want to reconnect with the royal family, there was no automatic path back into working royal life. In that reading, the era of leaning on royal ties to boost their public image or business ventures had, in his view, effectively come to an end.
Their problem is that they've got no future. I mean, as ever, all her products, of course, is a complete disaster. She's got no Netflix series. She hasn't got any project at all. And they are literally wallowing in in a maze where to go. And so predictably. And so that is the problem. And for them to come back in the midst of the current royal crisis here.
According to Bauer, the meeting was said to serve two main purposes. First, it was reportedly meant to send a very clear message that Harry and Meghan were not being welcomed back as working royals. Second, it was said to be meant to protect King Charles's image. The concern, as Bauer framed it, was that after Harry's accommodation request was turned down and the security issues continued, he could later present the situation publicly as proof that his father did not want him or his children in the United Kingdom. That possibility, at least in this account, seems to have been part of why the palace was so careful about how everything was handled.
That Harry would be able to say, my dad's left me out in the cold. You know, here's my dad not protecting me with security again. I guess my dad doesn't want to see his grandchildren. Because that is what I was concerned about. And I think I even said to you, could this all be a scheme, a setup to blackmail the king into showing up at Birmingham next year, which you've said yourself was the ultimate goal for Prince Harry, to have that royal presence.
King Charles, according to this reading, seemed to understand that risk and may have wanted to stop that narrative from gaining traction. By inviting Harry and Meghan to Highgrove and allowing a private family moment, the king was signaling, some observers said, that he was not fully shutting his son out. Instead, the idea appeared to be to show that the distance between them came from trust concerns, earlier public criticism, and Harry and Meghan's own choices, not from a complete rejection of the relationship. And that is exactly why people online have kept picking this apart, because the meeting was never being judged as just another private visit. To a lot of viewers, the real issue was what the moment seemed to signal, not only about family ties, but about how much access still existed behind the scenes. Some commentators have argued that even a short, carefully managed exchange can say a lot when the public already believes trust has been shaken. That is also why the discussion keeps circling back to image control. If the palace wanted to avoid giving anyone a clear opening to frame the situation their own way, then every detail of the visit would have mattered, from how it was arranged to how it was later interpreted. And once that kind of speculation starts, it tends to grow fast, especially when people are already looking for signs of distance, restraint, or tension. So while the meeting itself may have been brief, the reaction around it has made it feel much bigger. For supporters, it is still just a family moment that should not be overread. For critics, though, it is another example of how carefully both sides are managing the story.
William and Kate and the King and Queen rebuild trust and respect. And the quicker the Sussexes leave Britain, the better. The question is only whether they go quietly and stay quiet, or whether they scream to earn a bit more money at the royal family's expense. That is the untold answer.
According to Bauer, another reason the Highgrove meeting may have felt so uncomfortable was the presence of Queen Camilla. Her appearance was not just random. In reports tied to this discussion, Camilla was said to have been there because she had seen a number of the moments that some observers believe reportedly strained the relationship between Harry and the royal family. That, in turn, meant there was someone else in the room who could keep the conversation grounded and help make sure there was no confusion later about what was actually said. In that sense, she was the witness, so to speak. Online commentary has taken that as a sign that King Charles is no longer placing full trust in Harry, and some viewers believe that was a careful move on his part.
According to one royal author, it wasn't simply because she happened to be there. Instead, he claims Camilla had a very specific role to protect the king and ensure the historic meeting unfolded with an independent witness present.
When the meeting wrapped up, Meghan Markle was reportedly hoping for some kind of reassurance that everything had gone smoothly. But that public validation never really came. There was no official photo from the encounter, no clear public sign of reconciliation, and no moment that Harry and Meghan could use to build a powerful publicity image around it. According to the way this has been discussed online, the palace appeared to make sure there were no easy photo opportunities that could later be used to suggest Harry and Meghan had quietly regained their former royal standing.
But of course, They're not apologising. They have no contrition for the terrible things they've done over the last 5 years. So I never understood exactly how they thought it would play out, except that Harry was blackmailing his father.
Yes.
Do you want to see your grandchildren or not?
According to Bauer, there was also no apology from Harry and Meghan, and no restoration of their former standing. In his view, King Charles was not likely to reward years of public criticism and disagreement with a return to royal privileges, and once it became clear that their attempt to rebuild that royal connection had not delivered the outcome they hoped for, Harry and Meghan reportedly shifted their attention toward their young family members. Critics of the couple have suggested that the young family members may have been used to create a more emotional link with the king and possibly to encourage a gentler response, though that interpretation remains part of the online debate. That is why the reaction around this visit has not really faded, because people are not just talking about what happened in the room, they are reading into what it may have meant. In online discussions, even the smallest detail can get treated like a signal, and in this case, the lack of a polished public outcome only made viewers more curious. Once there is no clear message from the palace, speculation tends to fill the gap quickly. So the conversation keeps shifting away from the visit itself and toward what it says about the bigger relationship dynamic. Some people see the whole thing as a sign that the lines of communication are still being handled very carefully, while others think it simply shows how little room there is for a relaxed reunion anymore. Either way, the online response has made the situation feel larger than a short meeting should on paper. And that is exactly why this story keeps getting pulled back into public debate, because every silence, every omission, and every carefully managed detail now seems to carry extra weight.
And the king, not being in his best of health and all the rest of that, and being a man who on the whole probably wants to see his grandchildren, wavered. I think that now, that ship has passed. I think that the Sussex's dream of somehow finding a role here, half in, half out, I think that has now passed.
However, according to Bauer's account, King Charles reportedly made sure his grandchildren could still stay in contact, while also preventing the children from becoming a route for Harry and Meghan to re-enter royal duties. In that telling, the king was focused on protecting the future of the monarchy and avoiding any kind of major public relations win for the Sussexes. Bauer also suggests that Charles understood a warm public welcome could create confusion and might even undermine Prince William's position as the future monarch. So the meeting, as it has been described, stayed private, tightly controlled, and very limited. In the end, Harry and Meghan were said to have received only a private family visit. There was no security arrangement, no stay at Buckingham Palace, no public appearance with the king, and no restoration of their former royal standing. That was a very different outcome from the return they may have been hoping for. And when the meeting ended after just 47 minutes, there was reportedly no major agreement reached about Harry's possible return to the United Kingdom or any resolution to his security concerns. Meghan then reportedly stood up, took the young people, and left Highgrove to head back to their Montecito home, while Harry stayed behind to keep preparing for the Invictus Games.
Well, Meghan is furious because she hasn't done everything she wanted. When they knew they were going to come to the UK and London, she sent a list of what she wanted done for her at Buckingham Palace. Can you believe that? But they didn't go to a palace. They went to a home, and she didn't get what she wanted.
That is the picture Tom Bauer has painted of the 47-minute Highgrove visit. Based on his account, it may have ended far differently than Harry and Meghan may have hoped. If this family meeting and the missing public win stood out to you, like, subscribe, share, and comment with your take, and see you on the next one.